kind of grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and there were some great bands back in the 90s, kind of when I was in high school and college, and one of the more sort of, I don't know what to call them, quirky kind of bands was a group called They Might Be Giants. And they made these songs that were very funny, they were really upbeat, kind of easy to listen to, easy to follow along. One of their songs, this is how quirky they were, it's about President James K. Polk, the 11th president of the United States. You'd think, how does anyone write a song about an obscure president? Well, they did, and it's good. You should listen to it. You'll learn a lot. Well, one of the songs that they wrote in kind of the mid-90s, it was a song about the sun, the S-U-N, the big bright thing shining in the sky. And the song was called, Why Does the Sun Shine? And it was basically a scientific explanation put to music of how the sun works. Now, I won't sing it for you, but I'll just tell you one of the verses. It says this: the sun is a mass of incandescent gas, a gigantic nuclear furnace, where hydrogen is built into helium at a temperature of millions of degrees. So you're learning already. It says, the sun is hot, the sun is not a place where we can live, but here on earth there'd be no life without the light it gives. That's one of the verses. Go listen to it. You'll learn a lot about the sun. It's a song, though, about how the sun works, how it operates. It doesn't get into what I want to do today. It doesn't get into kind of the philosophical and theological reasons that the sun exists. If we said, not only how does the sun exist, but why? Go back one step further. Why does the sun exist? And we would say, kind of put very simply, the sun exists to give light. The sun exists to give warmth. The sun exists so that you and I can live our lives here on earth. Why does the sun exist? It exists to give light. Let's go back even further. Why do you exist? Why are you here? Why is any of this here? Why do you exist? And the church actually has a really good answer for that. It's very short, very sweet, and easily memorable. You exist to know God, to love God, and to serve God so that you can get to heaven. There it is. Now, that doesn't necessarily dictate what you're going to do today or what you're going to do with your life, but you exist to know God, to love God, and to serve God. It's what we're doing here. We could also say that we exist to give light. The gospel today talks about salt. We have a lot of it outside the building. You may have seen it as you came in. That was all in preparation for today's gospel. It talks about salt, but it talks about light. That you are the light of the world. When you read that, don't think about somebody else. Think about you. You could say, oh, everyone else, yeah, that's their job. No. Jesus says, you are the light of the world. Now, you may not always feel that way. Sometimes the circumstances of life, sometimes sin can darken that, can make it so that we're not the light of the world. Sometimes we give off the opposite of light. That's what we call sin. But you are the light of the world. A city set on a mountain cannot be hidden. Do not take your light and hide it. You are the light of the world. You were made to give light. You were made to give light out in the world, in all of the places that you inhabit, your neighborhood, your apartment complex, your school, your office, your team, your classroom. You were made to be light in those places, in your family, among your friends. And so I just want to say two things about light. We have to talk about where the light comes from. And I want to take you back to the day of your baptism. Some of you in here are preparing for baptism, so it's coming. But on the day of your baptism, if you were baptized in the Catholic tradition, whether you were a baby or an adult, when you were baptized, you were given a baptismal candle. That baptismal candle was taken and lit from a much larger candle. That larger candle that we call the Easter candle or the Paschal candle, that larger candle represents the light of Jesus Christ risen from the dead. When you were baptized, your candle was lit from that candle. Very symbolic, very important, right? Where do you get your light? If you're going to be the light of the world, if you're going to go out into the world and be light in your family and in your neighborhood and in your workplace and in your classroom, wherever you are, that light has to come from somewhere else. Where does that light come from? It comes from Christ. And so our job, if we're going to be light, we have to let that light in. We have to allow the Lord to not only light our candle, but keep it lit. So often, again, that's what sin does. Sin darkens our light. Mortal sin knocks that light out entirely. And so we go to confession. We turn a new page. We redo it. We receive God's mercy so that then we can go out and to be light. And so we have to first receive that light. If we're going to be light, we got to have our lights lit. And then the second part is we got to take it out into the world. I don't know about you, but there's times when I go through kind of bouts of selfishness. I want what I want when I want it, right? I don't want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do something that's solely for my own good, or what I think is my good, right? We go through these bouts of selfishness. One of the best things that you can do if you're going through a time of kind of self-centeredness or pride, one of the best things we can do to get outside of ourselves is to serve another person, to be light for another person. That can be very simple. That can be the stuff around the house. I was with the second graders this morning preparing for Holy Communion. We were getting ready for Lent, and I said to them, what's something around the house that you don't like to do? The answers were many and varied. There was washing dishes. There was taking out the trash. There was feeding the animals when it's cold. There was cleaning my room. Homework was in there somewhere. But what I said to them was, during the season of Lent, as a way of almsgiving, as a way of getting outside of yourself, do those things that you don't really like to do. That's how pride gets taken away. That's how self-centeredness gets taken away. When we get outside of ourselves, when we take that light and we bring it to other people. So two things. We got to be able to receive that light. Go to confession if you need to go to confession. When we receive Holy Communion, when we receive the sacraments, when we pray, when we read the scriptures, our light gets brighter. It gets stronger so that then we can be light out in the world. When our lights are dimmed, no one wants to look at it. No one wants to be a part of it. No one wants to light their candle from ours. But when it's strong and when it's bright, amazing things can happen. So that's the call of the gospel today, to be light for others. How will that happen for you this week? Again, in our own place. The places that you go, you might just be the gospel that somebody needs to hear this week by the way you live your life, by selfless service, by proclaiming Christ risen from the dead. A city set on a mountain cannot be hidden. To take our lights and to hide them is an offense against God. You and I have a duty from the day of our baptism to take our light to the world. That's our job. That's our mission. You are the light of the world.